Normally during this time, we would be kicking off our spring sessions, and we do weekly programming at the studio as well as workshops in person. So it's been very different because we haven't been able to have any of those in-person opportunities.
Welcome to the Saginaw Art Museum podcast. COVID-19 pandemic is altering the usual routines of people around the globe and around the block. As practices of social distancing and self-quarantine are implemented, artists are finding new ways to adapt to the changing landscape. In this series, Art at Home, we have conversations with artists and creative-minded individuals to understand the way these unusual times are impacting lives. From exhibitions to workshops to special events, Studio 23 is a vibrant arts organization in the heart of downtown Bay City. How has that changed with the current limitations of the COVID-19 pandemic? We gain insights from Executive Director Tara Welch about the way they are continuing to meet their community's need for art and connect the public through unique virtual programming. This interview was recorded April 29th, 2020. Well, Tara, thank you for joining us here on the Saginaw Art Museum podcast in this series, Art at Home. You have been working feverishly, from what I've seen across the internet, on developing some interesting programming during this unusual time. I'm a little curious to learn more about some of the efforts that you're making there at Studio 23 in Bay City, and the work that you're doing to try and keep your community connected. Tell me a little bit more, maybe generally, about what Studio 23 would normally be doing during this time and how that's changed.
Yes. Well, first, thanks for having me on the podcast. I think it's great that a lot of the local art organizations are trying to work together and especially stay in touch and just stay updated on what everyone is doing through these times. So we have been focusing all of our attention on our online programming, and we've been offering free family art projects a few times a week. We've been touring our Art Around the City project, which is an outdoor art exhibit. And so it's perfect for this time. For during this time, it's the perfect exhibit that we could have, is to be outside and on areas in our rail trail system. And then we've just been engaging with artists as well. We've been asking them to do artist takeovers featuring their studio spaces where they create a little bit about their processes. And it's been very interesting to learn all these new things about artists that we didn't even know as they're doing these live videos, which is fabulous. So it's very different. Normally during this time, we would be kicking off our spring sessions, and we do weekly programming at the studio as well as workshops in person. So it's been very different because we haven't been able to have any of those in-person opportunities, and we're currently switching over to offer online courses. And so that's been interesting, but we'll prosper and we'll do well, and we'll just keep, adjusting as we need to.
I'm a little curious to learn more about how your workshop offerings are changing. We've previously hosted Adam Stewart on the show. He was one of our guests, and I'm interested to hear more about the way that you're managing that process, sort of from a registration standpoint to an instructor standpoint. What kinds of challenges are you finding are in place, and how are you overcoming those challenges?
Well, the first challenge would be the technology. A lot of our instructors live in more rural areas that don't have very strong internet connections. So that's one hurdle that we've been trying to figure out, is how do we make sure that their connection to their internet is strong enough that they can host students. And then it's also what medium they teach. So drawing, color pencil, painting, those are very easy transitions, we think, that we can do. But when it comes to more three-dimensional work, like Adam teaches our pottery classes, we're still trying to figure out how we are going to transition some pottery classes, if that's even possible to do that. But it's definitely going to be hard to do that. And then also supplies. So we've been coming up with different ways that we could do like pickup days where people could come in and we would let one person in at a time to pick up their packet of art supplies that they'll need to do the workshop. We've also been exploring just mailing packets to people. So definitely still at this point, lots of research to try to figure out what the best options are.
That's certainly something that we have discovered as a logistical challenge, where, the supplies might be available, but getting those supplies into the hands of the people might be more limiting right now. Just the
Mhm.
packaging and making sure things are properly sanitized and the whole works, and really imagine puts a wrench into the works.
And we are so program heavy at the studio that, offering all these art classes, that's what makes our mission so important to us. And as well as having our gallery that people can come walk through and explore and purchase art. But it's, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And safety is obviously the number one priority for us. But to figure out how to safely do those things it changes every day, right? The rules seem to change and we just have to adapt as quickly as we can.
Tell me a little bit more about some of that walk-in traffic that you might normally get at Studio 23, especially as it warms up here in Michigan. And clearly, that is going to be impacted. How is that impacting the way that you're able to work, sort of on the non-programming side of things? What level of dependency is there on that sort of being present in downtown Bay City atmosphere on the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so summertime, we are planning on opening our exhibit in June, Painters and Potters, which is our student and instructor exhibit that we do. And as of right now, our plan is to limit the number of people that come into the gallery based on the governor's orders that she releases hopefully soon. And just to encourage that social distancing. So we won't be able to crowd the gallery like we used to be able to for different events. If we have 100 or 200 people in the gallery, we don't envision that happening anytime soon, but we do rely on those visitors that come to downtown Bay City that walk around our studio and then they find something that they want to purchase for a gift or for themselves. And we do get a lot of that kind of traffic. So we're hoping that we can continue that just in a different way. So concentrating more on just counting how many people are in our space at a time.
It sounds almost as though we're moving into this phase of reemergence, and now we're asking the question of how do we measure our space to accommodate people while still carrying out what we're here for. I think that's one of the things that we're dealing with at the museum specifically. Is how do we do this? And it sounds like you are in a similar situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're lucky because when we did our remodel, um, our classrooms, they all have doors that can be shut. So we are able to separate the space in that sense. So we'll be able to have a classroom going on and a classroom that's shut off from the gallery. And then we'll still be able to have patrons walking around the gallery. So we can separate our space, which I feel very lucky that we can do that, because if it was one big open space, I think it would be hard for us to imagine how we would make people feel safe while they're taking a class and then letting people walk around at the same time.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit more about maybe some of the funding challenges that you are facing right now. As arts organization, sometimes funding generally can be a bit of a challenge. Are you finding that there's additional challenges right now as you're looking for funding, or as you're applying for additional funding or working with sponsors?
I'm sure we're in the same boat as every other arts organizations, but a lot of the businesses that support us their main focus right now is to support their employees, to make sure that they can keep their employees on payroll and that they can keep doing their services that they're doing. So we totally understand that. And we're being respectful of everybody and their time. So right now we're focusing more on applying for grants through um, national organizations, applying for that kind of funding that we can get through grants to help with our operational support right now. We also rely heavily on membership dues, and we have a lot of very supportive members at the studio. And we're getting ready to ramp off Give Local Bay, which is the giving day through our community foundation. So we do have opportunities that we are taking advantage of. And then once we can get our programming off the ground virtually, we hope that that will continue to help us with our finances.
Yeah, having a strong membership base to start with, I imagine, has made the this time a little bit more bearable. Tell me more about how you're communicating with members right now. Are you finding new channels to stay in touch? Are people in your membership sort of seeking out what's going on at Studio 23? What's some of the sort of push and pull that's going on with your communications?
Yeah, so we've stopped doing mailings right now. We're not sending out paper newsletters or anything like that. We focus completely on our email system and our website. And we are making some updates to the website to help transfer some of the video content we're creating directly to our homepage on our website. So we are trying to make adjustments where we can so the information is very easy for people to reach. So the focus right now has been through email, through our blog on our website, through Facebook and Instagram, and then just trying to make those adjustments. So in case one of our members doesn't have Facebook, that they still could access the videos through our website. And that's a work in progress. But
Right. Trying to work across platforms and not strictly have everything on the social media. Yeah, I think that's important, just because as much as we think that everybody's connected through social media platforms, I think that it's surprising that, or maybe not surprising, but it's just a truth that there's some people that are not on the platform, and having it
mm-hmm.
through your website gives you a little bit more control.
Yep, exactly.
As you've been developing content, tell me a little bit more about some of the artist tours that you've created. How did that idea come up?
That's a good question. So, well, it actually started from one of our instructors. Armin Mersman teaches our drawing classes for us, and he had the idea to do a studio tour to show people his space and how he creates and how he kind of sets up his room to be the most efficient for him to make his art. So after his video did so well, we thought, wow, this is a perfect way for us to invite the other artists that we have in our community to do the same thing. So that's kind of where the idea started, and we just started reaching out to different artists, and pretty much all of them have accepted. And it's just been really great.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see people in the spaces where they create. A lot of times we recognize the art that's in your gallery, and it's neat to sort of have a behind the scenes look at how did that art come into being. We talk here at the Saginaw Art Museum about some of the historical context of paintings and the materials that are available and where the people are at in history, and having sort of that more current view of the way artists are working, I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
In closing here, I would love to sort of gather your thoughts on some things that you're most looking forward to as we move into the future, or anticipated outcomes looking towards the future as we move through this unusual time in our history here and in our community.
I think that's a hard question, or to gather my thoughts on, just because there's still so much unknown that we don't really know what to expect. I know the first thing that I'm going to be excited about is just having people in the space again. Working in such a creative space, and I'm sure you feel the same way, is the energy that people give when they come in and talk to you about the artwork and talk about their class that they're taking. That's kind of what fuels our day. And to go from being around so many creative people to having to work from home where it's just me as the only creative in my household, it's been quite the adjustment. So I can't wait just to get all the creative energy back into the workspace. And then I hope that we can offer classes in person. It's definitely going to change the way I'm sure that we do our fundraisers. Uh, Fundraisers, we've always, and I like all nonprofits, we've always relied on the more people, the better that we can get in the door. And I think now we're going to have to think about a different type of event to attract people. And also having worked through this online content, there are some people that we're learning that can't come to the studio, whether they can't come because of transportation or they can't come because of location if they live far away. This online content has shown us that we can reach quite the broad audience by offering online workshops. And we can, if you live in Ohio and you just can't drive up for a day workshop, but you're willing to take it online, and thinking about how we can adjust in this new time to make sure that we truly are continuing to make the arts relevant and accessible to all. And that's always our big thing, is accessibility. And so how we can change and do that in the future.
Thank you again for joining me here and talking a little bit more about the work that you're doing there at Studio 23. It really sounds like as many challenges as there are, there's also some really fantastic opportunities for education and community building. And that's a great way to see some silver lining.
Yes. Thank you for having me today. And I'm excited to see what the Saginaw Art Museum does as we get ready to open back up to the public.
Thank you for listening to the Saginaw Art Museum podcast. You can stay connected with the museum through our website and social media channels. We invite you to become a subscriber of this podcast or become a monthly contributor to the show to help us carry out our mission of providing art for all.